Louise, Neil, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk to you. You both run Townsend Theatre Productions. And what would be great is if you could give us a little bit of background about you, how you got here, what your company does. Yeah, just, give us a bit of background.
We got well before we set up Townsend Theatre Productions. We were both involved with theatre in various ways. I was an actor for years and in all sorts of community theatre rep and so forth, West End and all sorts of stuff like that. So some 10 years ago, we decided, and Lou was involved as stage manager and also casting director, in both lots of theatre experience going back years. And we decided to set up our own company some 10 years ago. We're both with young children, so if we set up a company to do a particular play and see how it goes, and it went pretty well. So we did a version of Ragged Trousered Philanthropist for two actors. We figured we could do it for two actors, and then tour it, see how it went, and it went very well. So on the back of that, we've created more new plays over the last 10 years in a community project, and so it's been, yeah, it's just snowballed. It's once the ball starts rolling, it just doesn't stop. So we've just kept going. Um, we're a bit fortunate. We've got fortunate in terms of getting funding. So we've gathered support from trades unions. Our work is very trade union based, labour history. It focuses on individuals who are very inspirational characters in their own right who've changed society for the better. And so we've had support from trade unions. We've also had Arts Council support and so forth over the years. So it's managed to keep us going. And we've also employed plenty of actors, designers, uh, uh, lighting designers, sound designers, and so forth along the way as well. So it's been very successful from that point of view as well.
And Louise, what's your background? I mean, Neil mentioned a little bit about your background, but how have you got to this point with Neil?
Um, well, I started my career as a stage manager at the New Vic Theatre in Stoke-on-Trent as when I was 17, and I did my work experience there in the stage management department. I then went and did a degree, and and then I went into stage management at the New Vic Theatre. Went to the Belgrade Theatre in Coventry and worked there. And then I decided I wanted to be a casting director, so I then worked with Pippa Alien Casting in the West End, and worked on Lion King, We Will Rock You. I worked at the National Theatre, the Young Vic Theatre. So I did lots of work in the West End. And then I had children, that meant that I couldn't be a casting director. Well, I could have been a casting director, and I did. I carried on. Um, but then I thought, well, okay, I want to go into teaching. So I taught for 6 years. And during that time, I really, really missed the theatre, really missed it. And I mean, I was teaching in further education, so I was teaching acting, I've always wanted to be a director. So, so I just, while I was teaching, I was only working part time. I started researching how to set up a company and looking at the Ragged Trouser Philanthropists, and so I booked these venues, and I remember the first venue that I booked, which was a Hertford Theatre with Rhys Thomas, and the Met Bury took Ragged Trouser Philanthropists as well. So I had two, and I was like, and the Met offered me £800. I was like, oh my gosh, wow.
Oh, that's a lot of money then.
Yeah, it was 2011. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I had these two major bookings, and Rhys Thomas had just gone to Hertford Theatre, and he said, oh yeah, I'll give you some tech space. I was like, wow, I got a week's tech space for free.
What?
And and I and yeah and we started Ragged Trouser Philanthropists at Hertford Theatre, and I remember it so well. And then we went to the lake And we had Fine Time Fontaine in it, and then we went to the lakes. What's it called? The
Theatre by the Lake.
Theatre by the Lake, Keswick, and we ran there. We did a run there for a week, and then we went to
we went to Glasgow Sits for a week.
we went to Glasgow Sits and sold out. This is with Ragged. It was just
It
extraordinary.
sold out everywhere it went.
Everywhere it went, Ragged sold out. It was just
exactly.
extraordinary.
Why do you think that is? Because I mean,
Partly because of the book. I mean, the book's hugely well known, and it's got a great following. But also, I don't think that I'm trying to think. There's not been a production of it for some time, for quite a few years. I think everybody, everybody felt. I think got a bit complacent because we had, we had 13 years of Labour government, and so politically everything kind of just went a bit quiet, and it was in a sense it was doing that show at that particular time with a new coalition government bringing in all sorts of manner of cuts and things like that. It suddenly became very, very relevant.
I think the reason why it was also successful was obviously the climate was right, but also I think in terms of political theatre, which is what we essentially do, it was entertaining. So not only was it, it wasn't dry, it wasn't.
This doesn't preach, does it?
And it wasn't earnest, and I don't, because of my background and how I work, I don't like that, and I don't think that's what we intend to do. It's about entertainment
as much as anything.
About as much as anything, and so that's really, really important.
Give me an idea of the size of your company.
Well, we made a conscious decision to do two-handers. So everything we did was two actors, and those two actors would do everything. They would turn up, they would set up, they would light the show, they'd operate the show. So from the stage, so everything is operated from the stage, lighting, sound, just instruments of acting musicians. They do everything. And then they pack up, and that's it. So those two people do everything, and that was the kind of thought behind it. So it was, and it worked so well in our two-handed version of Ragged Trousers that we thought we'd use it again and again. And it does, because what it does, it creates, it gives you plenty of problems because only two of you playing all these characters usually and doing everything. But the fun is in solving those problems. That you have to solve them in a very theatrical sort of way.
Quite simply put, how has COVID-19 affected you?
Well, it's cancelled all our touring. As I think we've since March we've done one show, so that's pretty good going, really. It's more than a lot of other people, I think. So we've had to cancel our shows. We've had to change what we do and how we.
I think the first thing that we had to think about was obviously you have to, the emergency funding came up, so we've spent most of our time applying for grants and trying to get that support, which we did, which we were very fortunate in doing. So that has meant that we can rethink and restructure, and I think the way to go is well, for our company is you need to be digital outside and inside as well. So you've got that whole umbrella of different ways that people can access your work, and I think that's really important, that the audiences can still access our work in some form. So there's a lot of planning and a lot of restructuring, and from doing the pilot with Live and Local, we really realised that actually we need a health and safety officer, especially if we're going outdoors and indoors. That is it's so important, and we need a digital officer as well. It's to be COVID compliant and to access the audiences online. We Are the Lions, when we put that out, that was a film. It was great.
It was a film of an archive. Yeah. It was a production we did 3 years ago, and we obviously we film our shows as just for archive, and we looked at this, and it was there were two cameras involved, so there were two angles, and it was like, oh, we could do something with this possibly to turn it into a sort of a kind of online presentation of of our plays as part of the money that we got from the Arts Council that for emergency funding was that
Can I just, yeah, can I just go back to that then?
yeah
The money you got from the Arts Council,
yeah
like us, was for a specific
Yeah.
project.
yes
Yeah.
yeah that's right.
There was three. There was
Well, we
three.
three projects we did, didn't we?
Yeah. So we did We Are the Lions, Mr. Manager. We did Daredevil Rise to Harama, which was an audio play, and we did a film about the Upper Clyde shipbuilding working, which will be a live tour. So next year, or in autumn 2021.
Which we've had to postpone. That's the other thing we've had to do. We've had to postpone work as well. But
so we should have been on tour now with the shipbuilding, Upper Clyde shipbuilding show, and we had all that booked. I mean, I had like 80 venues booked for this show, and had to cancel all of that. And so that makes you feel quite upset. Obviously, when I mean, I didn't. The venue's been great because they have I've said, look, we can't tour this till next autumn because it's a co-production with Manchester University, and so they've said, okay, yeah, we'll put it into the autumn. But that means that we've got a whole year, of where normally we're just doing one thing after another. So yeah, we've got a whole year of prepping, which is good. It's made me rethink, look at what we do, how we go about it. Artistically, it's been good, I think. I've been able to look at lots of different things and have lots of different ideas. Because when you're a producer and a director, your head is always split, and so I've had time creatively to think about what I want to do.
You talk about a lot about the collaborative relationships that you've been able to establish. Yeah. What do you think that's about? Why have you been so successful, do you think, with that?
Quite a lot of those people that go to the shows are, might be trade union leaders, so there's quite political leaders, we have lots of MPs come to see our work. So it has, I think that's why, in a sense, we get those connections. And with Manchester University, Ben Harker was someone who absolutely loved Daredevil.
Yeah, so Ben Harker is a lecturer in social history at Manchester University. His special interest is Ewan McCall and also the Communist Party of Great Britain, and he's producing a book this year about the history of the Communist Party in this country, and he was really taken with our production of Daredevil Rides to Harama, the story of Clem Beckett, the speedway motorcyclist who went to Spain and died fighting fascism at the Battle of Harama in 1936. So Ben was really taken with our work and obviously the subjects of the work. So he was really keen to support it, and so he's commissioned us to come up with a piece of work that complements his work, if you like. So, and we both decided to focus the next production on the Upper Clyde shipbuilders' working of 1971, which is a huge deal at the time. It was the government. This still sounds very familiar, but the government were just about to withdraw funds to the recently nationalised Upper Clyde shipbuilders on Clydeside. So the workers went, no, we don't. You're going to devastate the whole area. So we're going to not go on strike. We're going to work in. We're going to take over the yards, and we're going to finish the orders. And when they got the order books, they discovered that actually there was 5 years worth of orders that were going to be cancelled. So they carried on. They finished the jobs. They saved the yards.
So the money you got from the Arts Council was for these 3 separate projects.
Yeah, that's right.
My understanding was that there was an and there was a point at which those projects had to be done, the money was spent, etc.
Yeah.
That, in theory, is sort of now, isn't it?
Yes, that's now.
We're just about to the film's about to be done now, and we'll be all done.
But that so how do you feel in terms of financially then? That was that's the end of the project, but unfortunately we're having a second wave now and it doesn't look like there's an end to this. So how are you guys feeling in terms of kind of the potential for more funding and more support?
Well, I think the Arts Council have been actually quite good. If I'm honest, I think they know the situation that we're in, and I feel that I think they will support us, with project grants. They are very keen at the moment to support the next phase through project grants to reorganise your company. They know the difficulties that we're all facing, and I think that's actually a fantastic insight on their part, and actually it's important that you feel supported by the Arts Council in that way. So we reorganise, we do some more small projects, like I'm looking at outdoor projects for the summer next year, and then I apply for another grant for the tour, for autumn 2021, and I think you have to just keep plodding on. Now, I don't know whether we're going to get that grants for the arts. I've put it in, but who knows? There's still always that. Are we going to get it? Are we not going to get it? It's a small grant, but are we going to get it? Are we not? And I'm always like, oh gosh, are we? If we don't get that grant, then I will start to worry a bit.
First of all, I think it's really interesting because a couple of the other sort of companies I've spoken to have quite a different feeling about the funding opportunities. They feel that money they got from the Arts Council was their lifeline. That was it. They feel that there isn't going to be many more opportunities for that. However, you seem to be that it seems to be much more a normal thing for you guys that funding will come in and that you will find it.
I think because we've got the grant from Manchester University, that has helped us.
Do you think that's because the Arts Council really, really loves the idea of collaboration, and therefore if you're showing that you're doing this outreach and you've got these relationships established, they're much more inclined to invest in?
Yeah.
I think we've always been audience driven, and we meet their new structure really, really well. That is in our favour.
We've got commitments, haven't we, from trades councils, trades unions that step in and act and become our promoters.
I think up until April there is a pot of money there, and I think the Arts Council do want to help people. I suppose for us we really struggled to begin with. We didn't have any Arts Council money at all. So we relied on trade union money for a long time.
I think everyone's going to be cautious from now on. Even trades unions in the world of work is going to become the world of unemployment. That's inevitable, and I think trades unions are going to have to respond accordingly. So I think they're going to be, to be honest, they're going to be strapped.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I think our money from trade unions will dry up.
I think it will. Yeah.
Will you survive? Can you survive?
Who knows? I mean, it's everything's up in the air, isn't it? It's so uncertain because until we get a situation where the virus is under control, where it's been properly governed, where we're being properly governed, we're in no condition, any of us, to continue effectively. We will find ways because we are resourceful people, and that's what we've got on our side. We're clever, resourceful people, all of us. I mean, and we'll, where there's a will, there's a way. Mm-hmm.
But do you feel that there's a point at which you diversify to the point that you're just not doing what you want?
Not doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what will happen. Yeah. And I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think that will completely change. I think our work will completely change anyway. I think we'll probably do better work.
How have you been kind of, you know, emotionally, I guess, throughout this journey, both of you?
So October has been quite tricky because you see the venues getting lots of money, and that sounds a bit weird, but you do, and I go, oh, okay, and so I think we've had money, but I just, is that going to trickle down? Is that money going to trickle down? I'm not sure. It's to get them out of a situation.
Well, yeah, of course it is.
That's really dire, and I think I'm pleased they've got that money, because obviously otherwise our industry will die.
It's not going to solve.
But I don't know whether it's going to solve it.
It's not going to solve everything.
Yeah.
Is it?
And actually, just as we were talking, I suddenly thought, you know, we're all being asked to diversify, as I said, and you know, we're all thinking about outdoor theatre now and films and that is actually making it worse for the theatres, because what we're doing is we're creating work where we don't need the theatres.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So actually, it's kind of counterproductive.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And but yeah, and yeah, exactly. It's kind of tricky.
So lots of businesses that were very secure are suddenly insecure. It's not, we're not creating art anymore. We're proving viability. It's a change of emphasis, subtle though it is.
Have you ever, either of you or both of you, and maybe not just throughout COVID, but ever thought about changing careers?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's too
you,
late for me to do it.
It's too late.
I've been a boat builder, and I've been a barman, and I've done lots of other things anyway. So again, there's nothing unusual for artists to do other things. I think it's to be. I've always felt actually it's always helped my acting work or anything else to have another skill or another life or another, you know, it's good. It's nourishing. I think it's good. I think everybody should do it anyway, as a matter of course. But you should always be an artist first. So no, it's too late for me to think about doing anything else.
Do you think this pandemic has permanently affected our industry, or do you think we will get back to it at some point?
I think we'll get back to it at some point, but I just think it's
very different,
I think it's going to be very different, and I think it will take time to get back to it. I think companies and artists will start locally. I think the touring aspect might take a little while, but I don't know. You know, I've got a tour booked in autumn 2021 and 2022, so obviously the venues want it. That's a good thing, you know. Whether that can happen, you know, it just depends. I don't know. You know, I booked it that far in advance, hoping that it will be okay, and hence the health and safety officer, and hence the, you know, you've just got to be. I think the health and safety officer is really important. You know, I think that audiences feeling safe, actors feeling safe, will be a priority.
I think particularly you, Louise, I think so you've had that kind of professional experience of the arts and I'm kind of admin based. Do you know what I mean? It's,
yeah.
You're not just coming at it from an artist's point of view.
No. You know, the health and safety thing. I did the first health and safety thing for COVID, alongside with because the rural, I wrote it up for the rural touring circuit, and that got, you know, distributed it, and I thought, well, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't have had that training in stage management.
That's a big problem actually for a lot of companies, is that they don't have your experience. You know, they are just wonderfully creative, artistic people who come to create something, but actually they don't know how to do this stuff. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying to them, and it's why they will give up.
I've always been very keen that I know who the audience is. So I heard of a company that toured their work, but didn't know who their audience was. Whenever I tour, I have an audience in each area that I can contact.
You can't rely anymore on the venues to get your audience. Don't do it, because mostly they're not interested, because they've been cut to the bone. They've got their marketing departments are non-existent, or they're part-time. They just haven't got time to find an audience for your particular show, and they work on the law of percentages. If they've sold 30% or 40% of the house, for them that's enough.
And I always say this to young companies. Okay, you've got a piece of work. Who is the audience for that piece of work? And then target those audience.
If we went back to right at the beginning of this, the beginning of lockdown, would you have done anything differently?
We were lucky we had an archive film. We were lucky because we'd recorded Daredevil Rides to Harama. We'd recorded it as an audio play 3 years ago when we toured the show. But it's very hard to get people to part with money for online stuff. There's so much free.
This is a massive.
It's a whole nother issue.
All these theatre companies, all these creators are now going crazy to get everything online, to get everything on podcasts. But who cares?
I think people have had enough of it. You know, the digital thing, people have had enough.
Well, there's so much free, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the National set it up like that, and really, they did. And so you could see a national play over lockdown for free. And everyone else, you know, they've been putting stuff out for free. So it's really kind of where do you go from there?
What's made you the saddest about the current situation?
I just think lots of people out of work. Really, I think
so.
that's the worst thing. Is that, you know, you just quite a lot of
Really
loads
people.
of people
It's
out
not
of
one
work.
part of it. It's not just the actors or those
it's
people
everyone.
you see. It's the backstage people, the supply chain, all the way down to equipment hire, those sort of, you know, the venues having to shed really good marketing staff or administration staff. I mean, it's fine, but you know, have these theatres having got their bit of money from the Arts Council, they probably won't re-employ most of these people. No. So it will have a tremendous impact. I think. I don't think we've quite seen it yet.
What would you like your legacies to be?
I mean, our work is about bringing social history to life and remembering history that is not always read in schools or in books, but you know, people like J. Bendasai and Clem Beckett, who was the motorcycle rider. You know, these
Mary
people,
MacArthur.
Mary MacArthur. They're major people that aren't celebrated, and they're from they're from. Well, you know,
even Jimmy Reed, Jimmy Reed and Jimmy Early, all those shop stewards, they should be, especially now. Their story is going to be so relevant. With they fought for the right to work, and that's going to be a massive issue coming up. The fight to stop unemployment, but their belief. I mean, some of them were members of the Communist Party in the 70s. Their belief was, you can have that belief if you like, but it's not going to make an ounce of difference unless you change the system. And I think that's what's got to be, that notion of there is an alternative system has got to be brought back. And if that means that artists are out on the streets, they're having to go onto the streets, artists should get out there, and that should be their core message in a way, that actually this has to be challenged. Not just the environment, but it's the system has got to change, because everything else will change over and beyond that. So
I also hope that people will start to work more collaboratively. Venues can't survive without the artists, and the artists can't survive without the venues. And I think that whole, I think there needs to be much more of an even keel, and whether that will change, I don't know. But I do really hope that you know, that venues won't have as much to program. Do you know what I mean? So they will have to think, okay, well,
They've got to look. They've got to be more creative about where they look for. They look more locally for people
yeah,
to work with, to build up a
yeah,
relationship with. They should be doing that, I think. And these young companies, these young artistic minds, they they should be looking to bring them on. I think
yeah,
venues should be kind of
absolutely.
looking. Okay, what can we do here? We can work with people. We
Hmm.
can work with with young artists now to to pass on what we know, um, to to help them along the way, to share, because you, I don't think I don't think artists can be an artists in a bubble. They can't just be doing art. They're going to have to find other skills, I think, and this in the same way that venues are going to have to kind of look to help. I think venues can look to help in that way by sharing their administrative skills with artists, I think.
Like we were talking before about the fact of the how scary all this kind of
Yeah,
planning and the processes and procedures and the health and safety, these venues can be helping and supporting those,
yeah.
that, and the bid writing and the, which again is terrifying
Of course it is.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The bid writing, you know, the bid writing, all that kind of work. Instead of like making them pitch for
Yeah,
that, they should be there supporting those companies
totally agree.
massively,
And I
massively.
think, there are some theatres that do, I
Yes,
think,
there are. Yeah, there are
but
a few.
you're right. There's an enormous amount that are very much like, right, come on then, what do you got? What you got for me?
Yeah, exactly.
Louise Townsend, Neil Gore, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been absolutely brilliant. I've so enjoyed talking to you, and I hope we can continue these conversations. It's very, very useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
Thank
definitely.
you so
Brilliant. Thank you,
much.
Gemma.